Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here, recording another session of 1-2 No Limit 6 Max games on Ignition. Our games are up and running, so we'll jump right in. The lower right-hand table, we're facing a min raise from the cutoff. We're on the button, so we're going to go ahead and 3-bet them pretty aggressively, something like a 14 to 15% range. All suited broadways will be in there. Probably pocket pairs, 6 or better, ace jack plus, king queen plus, any suited ace, any suited Broadway, and maybe any suited 9. Something like that would get us to about 14-15%. We get called. He checks to us, a 7-5-3 rainbow board, so we'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Lower left-hand table, a player who appears to be a recreational player playing about 12 blinds deep limps, middle position. We're just going to go ahead and isolate with the 10s. We get check raised in the lower right-hand table. We've got 2 overcards, no backdoor flush draw. It is a small check raise, so I'd be floating pretty aggressively here. I'd be calling, all my pocket pairs. I'd be calling any of my overcards with backdoor flush draw. I think I can go ahead and fold this one, though. Face a 3-bet from the big blind. We can go ahead and fold that even though the sizing is small. Upper right-hand table, we raise the aces, of course. Lower left-hand table, we get 3-bet after we isolate the limper. I can go ahead and call. I don't want to 4-bet 10s in that spot. We are getting a pretty decent price to continue and see the flop. Upper right-hand table, the aces got 3-bet by the big blind, up to a small 3-bet up to 8. We're going to go ahead and 4-bet king, king, ace, 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 king suited to stack off, and maybe ace, queen offsuit as a bluff. Continue very wide against that small size and any kind of suited cards, pocket pairs, suited broadways for call. For the 4-bet, we'll just play kings, aces, ace, king suited, and then some bluffs with ace, queen offsuit. Upper left-hand table, we're going to raise ace-king suited in the middle position. And we'll check range multi-way with players in position to us. This is an interesting spot in that we really don't have much of a read on the guy. Ace-king table, after it checks through the flop, we'll go ahead and start betting small because we're multi-way on the turn. Trying to decide if I want to raise all in or just call. I think I want to float here. I can call in position with all kinds of draws as well as my pocket pairs. I think I just want to call, and then move him in if he checks. I can move in if I have some 6x here, which I probably have a little bit of against that small sizing. Hands like 5, 6, 6, 7 at least could call. I can have draws as bluffs. I could have the pocket pairs as well because they have that small pre-flop sizing. So I could be on a hand like 3s or deuces. I can also have all these mid pairs like 10s, 9s, jacks as played. Here I think I just want to go ahead and move him in. If I run into a trap with an overpair, it's going to happen some of the time. But as played, I think that's the right way to do it. Blind on blind, upper right-hand table, we can defend with pretty much any suited combo. Might dump a couple of them, but I'll call with the hand even as weak as 9-4 suited in position for a 3x open. He continuation bets a fairly large size, look like it's about 75%. We have second pair, no real kicker, no real backdoor draws, but still too good to fold just to one barrel, even if it is a bit larger size than we expected. Lower right-hand table, we get a 2.5x open from the button. We can defend our big blind with pocket 3s, and we'll check range on the queen 8-6 board. Face a small turn bet. Against the small turn bet, I really need to be continuing with, my draws, my second pair, my jacks. I can probably raise up jacks in a lot of cases there, my jacks, because it's a small size that he's using. However, against that triple barrel, when he sizes up there on the river, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to fold this, especially with that flush closing card coming in. So a lot of straights get there, and that the 6-8 gut shot, the 10-8 gut shot get there. The flush draw gets there. He could be on trip jacks or some kind of monster lock hand the entire time. Lower left-hand table will open 8-10 suited in the cutoff. Upper left-hand table, blind on blind. He checks to us, so we're going to go ahead and stab pretty heavily for a half-pot bet. Against some players, I would just be betting range. I don't know that I can't get away with that against this guy, so that's more or less what I'm doing here as well. Turn brings the flush closer, the 5 of hearts. We now have a gut shot to go with the overcard. I think if I had a heart, especially the 8 of heart in my hands, I would keep barreling. I'd also keep barreling my good straight draws like 10-9, double open-enders. Here with only a gut shot and no flush draw or flush draw blocker, I think I'll go ahead and check back and look to sort of call down if I improve on the river or maybe turn it into a bluff. Lower left-hand table, we can go ahead and range bet small on the Ace-Jack-5 rainbow flop. We pick up the deuce of diamonds, doesn't improve our hand at all. We could have various Broadway straights, various Broadway gut shots. We can have, aces, jacks, 5s, deuces, ace-jack, ace-5, and ace-deuce suited. We could also have all kinds of flush draws. I'm going to be using the overbet size here, and I'm not going to be overbetting a hand like 8-10 with no real equity. Upper left-hand table is just a straightforward fold. Lower left-hand table, go ahead and range bet on the 10-4-3 rainbow flop. You quickly check calls, and the 10 pairs up, a board pairing turn hits that pairs the flop top pair. Once again, I'd be using overbets on this board or checks, be overbetting my underfools, most of my 10x, maybe checking back a bit of 10x. And I can have various draws like 5-6 and various club draws. I can also be bet. Ace-9 is a good hand to check back. Might even be good against some ace-high. I can bluff catch, if he leads into me, if I pair up on the ace or the 9. I don't think I really get too many folds from one pair hands. I don't think a hand like 6-6, a hand like 4-5 folds out very often. I think I just want to hope this ace high has a smidge of showdown value here. If it was weaker, I would bluff. If it was, it's certainly not strong enough to value bet. And for some reason, he did not turn his king high into a bluff right there. So I shouldn't be allowed to get away with that, but I was, and that's why I checked back the ace high there, because it is good some of the time, even though it really shouldn't be good very much ever. He shouldn't be checking to me hands that can't beat ace high. Yeah. Lower left-hand table, we get a poster in the cutoff. The small blind isolation raises him, but very small, only a 3x size. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet. I'll treat this something like an under-the-gun open range here, maybe slightly tighter, and just go ahead and 3-bet him. With the pocket kings, of course, I'm going to be 3-betting him. Probably about a 6 to 7% range here. 9s plus, ace-queen, king-queen. Most of my suited broadways, maybe a suited wheel ace or two, something like that. And the poster jams over the top for his 30 blinds. Wasn't expecting that. I figured he was pretty much playing any two dead in the water. Maybe he's trapping or maybe he's just getting spazzy. Either way, we're happy to get our kings all in pre-flop for 30 blinds, so we call off. Run into 10-7 of diamonds. And we hold up even with that flush draw on the flop, giving us a bit of a sweat. Upper left-hand table, we're going to open the Jack-8 suited from the cutoff. The big blind comes along. We flop queen, 9-7 rainbow, so we do have a gut shot. So we'll go ahead and range bet small there. The 10 is not the nuts, however, because that would make king jack for the nuts straight. However, our hand is still pretty strong. Now we get check raised. We don't have a backdoor flush draw. We don't have a gut shot to the nuts. I think I'm going to be actually inclined to fold this. If I had either of those, I'd be coming along. If I had, King Jack, I would defend against that somewhat smallish check raise size. Or if I had more backdoor outs than this, I think I can go ahead and fold this one. It's probably pretty close. I guess in theory, there's some backdoor straight draws in the low end. You could argue coming along with like a 5 or a 6. I think it's pretty close. I don't think the check raises are all that aggressive. I don't think that board's going to have him doing it completely naked with air because it coordinates with lots of the middle and high card type hands. So he probably has some kind of piece. I'm going to go ahead and fold it. I don't think he's doing that with a hand like pocket fours. It's just going to give up when I barrel him on later streets. So I think it's okay to be a bit snug there. Could be close, though. I guess a call is not the worst thing in the world. Lower right-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the button. We'll go ahead and 3-bet very aggressively from our big blind, something like a 14% range. 8s plus, 5-4 suited plus, suited broadways, suited 9s, a couple suited 8s like jacks 10 and 9-8. A few suited wheel aces, and then ace-jack plus king-queen should get us to about 14%. Upper right-hand table, we open queen-jack in middle position. Lower right-hand table, we're going to open king 8 on the blind-on-blind spot. Get 3-bet small on this table, again, by the big blind. We don't have the kind of hand that wants to continue against 3-bets. We will be continuing pretty wide against that small 3-bet, but it's not going to be hands like queen-jack offsuit that don't have a lot of post-flop playability and also run into some domination issues. We're going to be calling a lot more our extra calls because of the small size. We'll be using hands like mid and small pairs, suited Broadway, suited connecting type cards, hands that have more playability post-flop and less domination issues. Potential wreck here, playing 36-0 over 14 hands. We'll keep an eye on what he's doing. He hasn't limped as of yet, but some early reasons to be suspicious that he is not a serious player. The player to my left here on the lower left-hand table has also been limping, hasn't raised pre-flop, so we'll go ahead and tag him. We're going to stab at this multi-way flop when nobody took a stab at it on the flop, or we're going to stab on the turn rather when no one took a stab on the flop. And we are going to follow through on the river, try to fold him off his misdraws or stupid things like pairs of threes. We get min-raise, we can just go ahead and fold. I don't mind stabbing pretty heavily when no one shows any desire for that pot on the flop, though, especially against weaker players like these two. Upper right-hand table, get a 3x open from under the gun. We're not going to 3-bet too tight. We're going to be pretty snug with our 3-bets in that spot, but we are still going to include most of our suited Broadway type cards like ace-jack suited. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind, we defend the 3x open with ace-7 offsuit. Upper left-hand table, we raise blind on blind with jack 10. On the lower right-hand table, we get check 2 blind on blind. We're going to go ahead and stab half pot, and he insta-folds. Min-raise from the button. We'll attack that pretty aggressively, but we don't need to be putting hands as low as 8-6 suited into our 3-bet range there. I'd probably use you know, hands like 10-8, 9-8 suited and stronger. Nothing weaker than that. Lower right hand table, we'll raise the button first in with 8-6 suited. And we get 3-bet to a small size by the small blind. Against that small size, we can continue with this sort of middling suited gapper card. Lower right-hand table, King 10 is close between an isolate over the limper and in a check-in. I'm just going to check it in, but raising is probably pretty close. We'll check range out of position. Lower right-hand table, we face a, let's see, it's a third pot C-bet. We have an open-ended straight draw on the 10-7-5 rainbow flop, so we're going to come along. Lower right-hand table, it checks through. We're now going to start stabbing with our gut shot. Upper right-hand table, let's see here. We get a check 2 on the turn. I think I want to start betting roughly geometric growth of pot here to threaten him, as if I could have my sets or strong 2-pair type hands that want to get the money in. Let's see. Put about 25 in. Upper right-hand table, we're going to isolate the under the gun limper with our ace-queen suited. And I'm probably going to be barreling off with my 8-6 there if he does in fact continue for a check call. Upper left-hand table, we'll go ahead and range bet small on the 7-7-6 flop. We get instantly check called with 9 of clubs, which also closes. The flush comes in. We have no club. I don't think we fold him off hands like, 8-9, 9-10 kind of stuff that could have check called the flop weakly. His trips and flushes are obviously going nowhere. We can check back and evaluate. Now that's a river worth turning the hand into a bluff on, just because he can fold out his weaker pairs now. So we're going to go ahead and use a pot size bet on the 4 straight run out. And got called down by pocket fives, which I don't think is a great call there, but we also had plenty of reason to know he's not a very strong player, given that he's limping out of the gun and playing on a short stack. I still think it's okay to turn our ace high into a bluff there when there's a 4 straight run out there. Blind on blind, get a limper the lower left-hand table. Go ahead and isolate. Well, not really an isolation because there's nobody else in the pot. We'll go ahead and raise that limp up with something like our button open range, a low to mid 40% raise first in range, including King 3 suited. Get called. We have a Jack 4 deuce two-tone flop. We'll go ahead and range bet small. We have an overcard and some backdoor straight draws to bail me out if he continues. Interesting card. He could be check calling some 4x type hands. And then when he leads, however, given that I don't really have anything going on for this hand, I think it's an easy fold. It's a more curious question if he checks me, do I barrel a hand like this, where there's some equity against the jack with the overcard. I do have removal to 3-4, which is a 4x hand he might be playing to some extent. I'm not sure how much that really matters. But against the lead, we're just going to go ahead and fold. Lower left-hand table, get a blind down blind spot. 9-5 is on the cusp of what I would open. I think I can go ahead and fold it, but it's pretty close. Upper right-hand table, get a 2x open from under the gun. Jack-10 suited probably a little too loose to 3-bet with, but it is pretty close. And the lower left-hand table, the 3x open from the cutoff. Ace-8 suited could be a 3-bet. It's kind of on the cusp for me. I'm going to err on the tight side and fold it, but it's pretty close. Same thing with the queen-deuce on the button. Pretty close to being an open or a fold. In both cases, just outside my typical range of hands, I would 3-bet or raise first in, respectively. But pretty close, and I don't hate a 3-bet or a raise if that's what you would do in those spots. Going around here. I mean, this guy playing 33-6 over 18 hands. I had suspected he may be a recreational player before. I'm going to go ahead and tag him now. We've got the rec player to our immediate left over here in the lower left-hand table. Up here, 25-14. How many times is he's VPIP 3 times without raising, twice in the big blind, once in the cutoff. This guy playing 23-8 or 21-7. Although his VPIPs were also in the big blind, which aren't necessarily fishy. You are supposed to be calling in the big blind quite a bit. We'll leave this table for now. This table down here doesn't seem to have anybody that's an obvious rec or even a suspected recreational player, so I'll shuffle this one out. We'll keep an eye on the upper right-hand table and see what some of these guys that are kind of questionable, which way they go. And we'll, of course, keep the other 2 table with some confirmed fishy players in the hand. Lower upper right-hand table rather. In the small blind, we face a min raise from the button. However, this guy has been very tight. He's only raised 4 hands out of 30. It's a large enough sample to indicate he probably is playing tighter than typical. It's not just short-term noise. Against a typical button 2x, I would go ahead and 3-bet from the small blind with my ace-jack. Because I'm pretty sure this guy is tighter, I'm going to deviate tighter myself and not 3-bet as wide. I'm going to go ahead and fold the ace-jack offsuit. It is pretty close, though. And, and it would be standard to 3-bet him there if that was a standard button player. I just think he's so tight that it warrants being tighter myself with my 3-bets. A new table forming with one guy playing 30 blinds deep. We'll stick around here for a little bit and see what he does, but he's almost certainly a recreational player buying in short. In the blind on blind spot, we raise king queen offsuit, and we're going to check range on the 6-4-3 rainbow flop. Against the pot size bet, we can just go ahead and fold our king high with no back doors. Upper right hand table, under the gun raises for 3x, and the cutoff we're going to go ahead and 3-bet. You know, it's 7 to 8% range, including perhaps only the one suited wheel, ace, ace-5 suited, but that's the first one I will pick, so we'll go ahead and include that. We'll also have hands like 9s plus, ace-queen plus, king-queen, ace-10 suited plus, king-jack, and queen-jack suited plus, those kind of hands. Lower left-hand table, we'll open king 10 from the cutoff. Get quickly called on the button. And then we get min-raised by a player who's pretty short. I don't love calling with the player behind me. I don't love calling against a player that's so short. I don't love calling with a hand like king 10 offsuit. That said, I'm less worried about domination from the re-raising player when we're so shallow. If I make top pair, I can just go with it. And the price is so good, I am going to continue. I really can't fold much of anything here. But it's not as nearly as great a spot as it might first look. Upper left-hand table, we'll raise 7s under the gun. The under the gun player just goes ahead and jams for 2/3 a pot. We have top pair, nothing to do but go ahead and call off. Hope we don't get squeezed behind. We do get squeezed behind, so we've got no choice but now but to go ahead and fold. And we're against bottom 2 pair. Oh, I think we did what we were supposed to do there, as much as the overall situation stinks to put that many blinds in with top pair and not be able to get the showdown. But we got away once we were sure that we were beat, and we did have the short stack beat. Under the gun, we raise the 7s, get 3-bet in position by the button to 3x. 7's probably just outside my defense range here against the pool. I'd probably defend 8s plus, 8s through jacks, and 4-bet queens plus. Defend a couple of suited Broadway cards like ace-queen, king-queen. I think we can go ahead and fold the 7s. Once again, on the cusp, I'll err towards folding because I draw the line somewhere, and that's where I've decided to draw the line. But once again, very close. We'll tag him in case he reloads. It looks like he does, and we'll tag him. We'll keep him, the limp now tells us for sure, but he's calling every hand. He was calling raises in position with 5-2 suited, you know. Then he instantly makes that wonky check raise for a weird sizing when he made bottom 2 pair. I think it's also pretty clear this guy is not a serious player. Get a cutoff raises first in for 3x. We're in the big blind. We can go ahead and 3-bet about a 10% range here, including our suited broadways, most suited 9s, maybe 9-8, 10-8, jack-8, a few suited wheel aces, ace-queen, king-queen, pocket 9s plus. Range something like that's good to 3-bet out of the big blind with in this spot. He's thinking about it. Lower right-hand table, we'll raise first in with queen 9. Upper right-hand table, we'll go ahead and range bet small on the ace, queen 7 two-tone flop. Lower left-hand table, we've got that gut shot. We're going to go ahead and start betting small into the multi-way pot. Turn, we pick up a gut shot to go with our flush draw. Upper left-hand table, we'll raise king, queen first in. Lower right-hand table, we're going to range bet small on the queen 5-5. I'm not going to bluff multi-way on that flush closing river with that fish out there in position to me. We'll bet a roughly geometric pot here to set him up for a river jam of equal sizing. Got too much equity to just give up on a hand like this, of course. I guess the only other option would be to put into some kind of check raise all in line as well. I'm just not sure that's the move there either. I don't think he really bet folds too many hands. I think I can put a bit of a scare in some weaker King X or Queen X type hands, or if he has some kind of 7X or middling pair. I don't love getting raised all in there, though. I don't really quite have enough equity to call off either. So that's a very unfortunate situation. But, you know, we blocked a straight. So we blocked Jack 10, and we've got a lot of equity. I think it's okay to keep barreling there, even though that outcome is bad for us. Upper left-hand table, we checked back the turn when it paired up with the 7. Now that the 4 straight runs out there, we've got no showdown value with King High. We're going to turn this into a bluff, and we'll use a full pot-size bet on the 4 straight run out. And I can legitimately have hands like 4-5, 6-5, pocket 5s. You know, I don't bet all my 5X on the turns. My 5X, especially that with some showdown value, frequently checks back. Upper left-hand table, we raise ace-4 suited under the gun. Lower left-hand table, isolate the cutoff limper from the button with Jack-10 offsuit. Use something like our cutoff raise first in range to do our isolation there, mid-20%. Recreational player calls on the big blind. The original raiser folds. We get an ace, ace, queen, two-tone flop. He checks to us. We're going to go ahead and range bet small. Upper left-hand table also range bet small on the 8-3-3 rainbow flop. Lower right-hand table, the player's been pretty tight so far, but only over a couple of orbits. He raises 3x from middle position. We've got ace-jack suited in the button, or I'm sorry, in the big blind. That's going to be a 3-bet. I'm just trying to think about how loose my range should be here against this guy, given that this is only the second time he's raised. That doesn't tell us too much over this small sample. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet him just a standard 3-bet range here, about 8%. 10s plus, ace, king, any suited Broadway, 10 jack, queen, and king 9 suited, and maybe ace 5, ace 4 suited. Upper left-hand table, we raise king 8 suited on the button. Lower left-hand table, recreational player limps middle position, then another one completes a small blind. We'll go ahead and raise up with our pocket nines. Upper left-hand table, we raise first in from the cutoff with queen eight suited. The rec player calls us in position. We'll range bet small on the king queen 3 rainbow flop. We get called. We'll go ahead and check to him on the queen turn. Look to move these nines towards showdown as cheaply as possible. Probably folding to bets for the most part, though. Upper left-hand table, we'll range bet small on the jack 8-5 rainbow flop. Lower right-hand table, we raise king queen suited first in on the cutoff. Lower left-hand table, we'll keep checking the nines. Not trying to value bet here and try to bait him into calling with something worse, but we can possibly get snap off some whiff straight draws. Lower right-hand table, we've got that flush draw on the 7-6-4 two-tone flop. We'll go ahead and range bet small. We turned a two-pair on the upper left-hand table, so we're going to go ahead and keep betting. We're going to use the overbet size here. He bets about 2/3 pot. He's loose, spazzy. He's betting under pot. He's betting in a broken aggression line. We're going to use the overbet on the lower right-hand table. Really only betting 8x in draws. However, when he flats me there, I'm not really sure I can get him to fold too much by continuing on this river. I think this is pretty close. I'm going to call it down because I think this guy is probably going to have a lot of loose cards in his range pre-flop. Yeah, ace-4. The question is, do I really try to bluff a guy like this? I mean, I guess I could maybe fold him off a set. I really have to go all in or fold at this point. I don't really think, I mean, if I've got the 8x or 8-9, I'm just going all in. If I've got a bluff, I'm going all in. I'm not value betting any hand small. I also block the diamonds. I'm gonna wimp out and not do it. Oh, and I end up checking down against ace high, and that's why you don't give up on your bluffs on the river very often. That's why you shouldn't do that. And that's what I get. And you caught me on camera being a little baby and wimping out and not doing it. And I just let him keep a very large pot or a mid-sized pot he has no business keeping. You know, in my defense, I'm cautious with the overbet bluffs all in on the river because this player pool seems to be a little bit inelastic to sizing, meaning they often don't, you know, they don't fold enough more for the larger sizing as much as they should, from what I've seen. And I also didn't have great blockers, and that I blocked the flush draw. But I don't know. I'll have to think about that one some more. Upper right-hand table, get a 2.5x open from middle position. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet, about a 7.5% range from the big blind, including our pocket kings, you know, suited broadways, ace-king, 9s plus, maybe a couple of suited connectors like jack and 10-9, and maybe ace-5 suited, something like that. You get called in position. You got a 10-6-7 rainbow flop. We'll go ahead and range bet that one small. He calls. We get a blank of all blanks, the deuce that completes the rainbow. think we want to just keep betting and use a size to get us all in by the river with equal sizes on the turn in the river, geometric growth of pot. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll go about 24. Yeah, that sizing feels about right to me. Calls again. Another blank. Nothing else to do but just go ahead and jam these kings all in. Hope to get called by 10x, jacks or queens that flatted pre-flop kind of stuff. I think jam is just easily the best play here. And just hope we didn't run into a trap. He folded out. Button, we raise most of our offsuit aces, but I'll fold a couple of them. We'll fold the ace-3. Upper left-hand table, middle position, who's short, raises 2x. We're just going to go ahead and raise the jacks up to get these in. We'll probably raise, we probably even get 10s all in against this guy. So we'll probably do about a 50-50 ratio of stack off hands and bluff hands here. So we'll raise something like 9s plus, ace-queen plus, and some suited Broadway type cards. You get cold 4-bet by a player that shouldn't make us for being particularly weak, given that we 3-bet a short stack. I'm trying to think how I would play my range in this spot like this. I'm going to give this guy credit for being quite tight with the cold 4-bet. I think what I want to do here is I think I want to ship my kings and ace-king in over the top. I think I want to trap with aces, and I also want to call and continue with hands like queens, jacks, and ace-queen suited. I think that's the way I want to approach this range right here. I think that's a pretty reasonable way to do it. Jacks could theoretically even be a fold pre-flop. He's been pretty aggressive, though, with the pre-flop. 39-21, lots of 3-bets so far. We'll call with the jacks. We're not getting too out of line here, but we'll call with the jacks. We would certainly have ace-queen, pocket queens, and pocket aces here, so jacks is now my worst hand, I think, and especially without the spade blocker to backdoor into it. I think I can just go ahead and fold this one, because it was already pretty close pre-flop. Lower right-hand table, we raise the king-8 suited in middle position. Get called in position on the button and by the big blind player, so we'll go ahead and check range with player in position to us on the queen 7-3 two-tone board. Turn is the 10 of spades, or 10 of hearts rather. Double flush draw board. Pretty coordinated, we have no piece of it, no real draw. We're getting let into by the big blind for a pretty good size multi-way. We can just go ahead and fold. I would probably stab at that multi-way if it checked to me again with nobody showing any desire for the pot, with the big blind checking twice and the button checking back the flop once. That said, once I get bet into and I've got no piece of it and no equity, I think it's okay to just go ahead and fold and not try to get too creative, especially multi-way. 3x open from the cutoff. We're in the big blind. We can go ahead and defend with our king-queen. This guy's been on the tight side so far also, so actually maybe I treat this like a bit tighter range than I otherwise would. Doesn't change what I do with the king-queen. I'm going to call that anyway, but I think I just might not be continuing or 3-betting quite as wide, given I think this guy's been a bit nitty and passive. 20-13 over 46 hands, 6 out of 46 raises pre-flop. That's a large enough sample to indicate this guy is not playing as wide as the computer solvers would tell us we should be, or as wide as most regs are playing in the game. The upper right-hand table I'm going to shuffle out. It just doesn't seem like any particularly obviously weak players in there. Upper left-hand table, blind down blind. Jack 4 is kind of close. I'll fold it, but it could go either way. Getting a lot of these hands right on the cusp of what I either want to raise first in or 3-bet. They tend to be just outside my range to continue, and I've been folding, but a lot of them are very close and could go the other way. Upper right-hand table, we'll raise King Jack first in on the cutoff. Everyone folds. This new table, the player to my immediate right is short by a couple of blinds. Let's see if that's something that happens consistent. Over here, this guy either posted or limped. I didn't get to see which it was, but we'll keep an eye on him too. Ideally, that was a limp, which means he's a weak player, and there's a weak player at this table. But we'll wait and see. Upper left-hand table, blind on blind. We raise the 10-9 offsuit. Get called, and we check range on the ace-queen-5 rainbow flop. He checks back quickly. We turn a gut shot with the 8 of diamonds. We're going to go ahead and start jabbing at this pot. And now we actually have a flush closing river with the 10 of diamonds. Trying to decide if it's better to sort of bet this for value or just to check and try to check it down. I don't think he ever folds the queen or the ace. I don't know how much he really calls with worse hands. I don't think he bluffs me off too much either. I'm just going to go ahead and check and try to get my free showdown here. If he bets large, I can, of course, just pitch this. He bets half pot. Let me think about this one for a little bit. The half pot bet is usually pretty bluffy from the fish. In fact, the sizing is probably going to be what carries me here. The half pot bet is just so small. It's not going to be good that much, but good often enough. And he had 8-10 for 2 pairs, so I wasn't folding them off if I bet it either, of course. But I think for half pot, he bets bigger, I can get away from the hand. But upper left-hand table, cutoff goes to a 3x open. We're sitting in the button with aces. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet, something like a 12% range. Pocket sevens plus, ace jack plus, king queen, suited broadways, all the suited wheel aces, and ace 9 and 10-9 suited. Something like that will get us to about a 12% 3-bet range. Aces, of course, the tippy top of that. Get called out of position. Lower right-hand table, we get a recreational player limps the button with complete small blind with 5-5. Upper left-hand table, we'll go ahead and range bet small on the king 9-7 two-tone flop. Check calls. The turn is a 10. Let's see here. We don't want to quite go full pot here, but go about 90% a pot. There are a lot of hands out there that can beat us at this point, so that's not great. That offsuit 3 is a great river, though, and that doesn't really improve anything that could be in his range. Now I think I just want to go ahead and jam my aces all in. Upper right-hand table, recreational player limps middle position. We'll complete the small blind with all of our offsuit aces. Check range on that 8-9-6 flop. This guy's done some limps. We can go ahead and tag him. We'll go ahead and start stabbing at this pot when nobody took a bite at it on the flop here. This limp multi-way pot. We following through on the river unless we're multi-way. I might give up on a multi-way river. Heads up. We'll go ahead and bet. Try to move him off. All kinds of stuff. All kinds of one-pair hands with that river bet. He's got some draws, too, that we already were ahead of anyway that didn't pair up at any point in the hand, but I think it's better to just bluff with that hand as played. This guy also seems to be a recreational type with some limps going on. Lower left-hand table, we raise King 10 from the cutoff. Get called by a recreational player in the small blind to get a Jack, Jack 9, two-tone flops. We have a gut shot and an overcard. Go ahead and range bet small on that board. We get check raise pretty large. Paired flop, you know, we don't necessarily even have backdoor diamonds in our range here. No reason to think that he's particularly weak using the larger size, and he's a more passive fish type player. I'm just going to go ahead and fold this. Continue with, you know, my Jack X, my 9's full, my overpairs, my open-ended straight draws, my flush draws. I don't need to float him weak there, though, in that spot. Couple recreational players limp, the cutoff in the button. Get an isolation raise from the small blind. I was going to do that myself. I don't want to isolate as wide, or 3-bet the isolation raise rather as wide as King Jack offsuit. I don't believe. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold that. I would repop his isolation raises to stack off with queens plus ace king, maybe jacks, and a lot of suited Broadway cards that would fold if he jams over the top. I don't need to do that with king queen offsuit as well. Upper right hand table will range bet small on the queen 7-5 flop, rainbow flop. I'm going to shuffle out the upper left-hand table. I've got one recreational player, but it's the worst seat to my immediate left. And while he's had some limps, he's not completely loose passive. Well, he's very passive, but he's not completely loose the way some of these wackier fish are. He's only been 27-0 over 62 hands. Given that he's not that fishy, all things considered, and the other guys aren't really terrible players, and I see some much better players in the pool at my other tables, I think I'll shuffle that one out. Lower right-hand table, there's a min raise on the button. We'll defend our big blind with the 10-8 offsuit. And check range on the ace 5-5 two-tone flop. We're just going to go ahead and check fold with no real backdoor equity against a tight passive fish type player. Upper right-hand table will open ace-king suited on the button. Get quickly called by a recreational player in the small blind. And we flop Broadway, Queen Jack 10 rainbow. So we'll go ahead and range bet him small and start sizing up on the turn, looking to get all the money in by the river. Lower right-hand table will raise 6-5 suited from the button, first in. We get check raise small. We'll go ahead and call to continue. Not the best turn card for us, in that he, he could now actually have a full house. However, we're just gonna not be too worried about that. We're just gonna try to get the money in against this guy. Lower right-hand table, our button raised first in faces a 4.5x 3-bet from the small blind. We're going to go ahead and defend that with our suited connectors in that very loose formation. Slight overbet to bet roughly geometric here to try to get them all in by the river. Not a great card again, in that more full houses are possible, and he could have chops in his range now he otherwise didn't have, and the straight is a lot more obvious and scary, so his weaker hands are less inclined to call down. However, I'm still not doing anything but trying to stack this guy. I'm just going to force him to call off with something foolish, or if he has a trap full house, more power to him. Lower right-hand table, we get a small, what looks like a range bet, 1/3 bet in the King 8-5 rainbow. We got bottom pair and a backdoor flush draw, so we're coming along for that. Get a half pot bet on the turn, having picked up the backdoor flush draw. That's going to be a very easy continue with so much equity. I probably need to turn this into a bluff, and that I don't have too many bluffs in my range. Really only 6-7 entirely missed at that point. I could be sitting on various traps. However, when he goes ahead and jams, I can just go ahead and fold my 5th pair. Lower left-hand table, we raise first in for middle position with Queen 10 of diamonds. It's like a shorter player with we have immediate position, a shorter player at this new table, so I'm pretty happy to see that. Lower right-hand table, we'll raise ace 10 for middle position. Upper right-hand table, we raise first in from the button with King 10. Lower right-hand table will range bet on the 9-6 deuce rainbow flop. Got a recreational player coming along from the blinds. In the same lower right-hand table, we raise first in with ace-jack offsuit. Upper right-hand table, we raise the cutoff first in with pocket fives, 5-5. Get 3-bet pretty large, almost a 5x 3-bet by the big blind, who tends to be a bit tighter than the small blinds. We can go ahead and fold the pocket fives here, especially for that larger size and then perceived tighter range. Lower right-hand table, we check range on the King 8-4 rainbow flop. Lower or upper left-hand table, get a 3x open on the cutoff. You've got pocket 3s on the button, or I'm sorry, pocket 6s on the button. I'm going to 3-bet pretty aggressively here, but pocket 6 is just outside the range, so I'm going to go ahead and fold that. Button, we're going to follow through, continue trying to bluff here with our ace-jack. After stabbing the turn, following the flop check back. We get raised up. Most likely 8x, maybe he's putting the play on me. Either way, I can just go ahead and fold with nothing going on from my hand as I was bluffing, and when I'm bluffing and I get raised, it's a pretty easy fold. We checked range against the limper and the small blind completer on the upper right-hand table. We checked in from the big blind. We'll check range on that 9-7 deuce two-tone flop. So recreational player goes ahead and he bets 2. We're going to go ahead and check raise this guy with our top pair, top kicker. Want to deny equity from stuff. I think I can actually get a lot of value from stuff I'm ahead of here too. Upper left-hand table, we raise queens first in from middle position. I really should have isolated the blind on blind limper there with the king 9 offsuit, but not the end of the world that I did not. We'll check on that queen overcard. Lower right-hand table will isolate the limper with king 10. I'm going to go ahead and just try to get some value even in that flush closing river. If I get raised, I can fold pretty easily against this guy, but I can get called by worse one pair hands that aren't that scared of the overcard. Yeah, and he raises me up to 30, I can just go ahead and fold and be concerned that he's got a flush draw that came in. And I can just go ahead and call this small bet. Not good that much, but flopped the straight. Didn't get very much out of it though. Lower right-hand table, we'll range bet on the Jack 5-4 rainbow flop. Quickly take it down. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, we raise the ace-10 suited first in. And we'll check range on the 8-6-5 two-tone flop. Against the half pot bet, we've got 2 overcards, a backdoor flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and continue against that reasonably sized bet. Check again on the 8 turn. Double paired board, we've got the ace high. I don't think there's much sense in trying to fold this guy off of anything better here. I'm just going to check and try to show down my ace high, maybe even bluff catch. Upper left-hand table, we get under the gun limper, recreational player, small blind completer. We can isolate with the king-jack offsuit out of the blind. On the ace-10 hand, he had 7-5, so he actually had a pair and an open and a straight draw on the flop. Upper left-hand table, we're going to go ahead and range bet small on the Jack 10-10 rainbow board. Get quickly called. I'm going to go ahead and start slowing down and putting this into a check call line on the position here. He bets 5 into 18, easy call with the jack, and we'll check to him again. Another 7, double paired board. Got a pretty good bluff catcher here. He checks behind, my jack will be good. Lower right-hand table, we raise ace-10 first in. He had pocket 4s, so he didn't turn his 4s into a bluff on the river. He really should have, given they had no showdown value whatsoever. Most likely wasn't going to work, but you really can't be showing down pocket 4s there. Lower left-hand table, 2.5x open from the button. We can defend with the hand like King-9 offsuit. Towards the bottom of a defense range, but a reasonable defense all the same. Get that small range bet. We'll go ahead and check call with the king. Could check raise some king X here for value and to deny equity from other hands, but I think it's okay to just go ahead and check call that one. This is close between turning it into a bluff and just showing down on the 4 flush runner. I think I'm just going to try to show it down. And I wonder what he checked back there and didn't even consider bluffing. Upper right-hand table, button raises first in. We'll defend the big blind with ace-10 offsuit for the 2.5x open. And he had ace-9, ace of spades, 9 of hearts on that 4-club runout. I don't know why he didn't turn that into a bluff. He really should have. Here we've got the backdoor flush card blocker against that 2.5x open. I really can't have 7s or 8s. I could have a little bit of 8-7. I can have some king-7 and king-8 suited. I don't really want to be check raising too much here though, because I really don't have the strongest possible hand. So I'm just going to check call to float this. And we're going to go ahead and bluff the river, especially with that nut flush blocker. Could also consider using an overbet size here with the nut flush blocker. Under the gun, Braze's first in for 2.5x. We'll 3-bet our button with about an 8.5% range, including pocket queens. Something like 9s plus, ace-10, king-10, queen-jack suited plus, offsuit ace-queen and better, king-queen off, couple of suited wheel aces like ace-5, ace-4 suited. I'm going to shuffle this table out with only the one recreational player who's short and not necessarily all that weak, playing 24/7 with limps on a short stack. Got a 2.5x open from the cutoff. We'll defend our big blind with Jack 10 offsuit and check range in the 6-5-4 two-tone flop. He checks back his flop, so I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing at it. Upper left-hand table, we get a cutoff 3x raise first in. We've got pocket sevens on the button. This is kind of towards the cusp of 3-bet or fold. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet it. If I think this guy is too tight, which he might be, but I'm not completely convinced of it, you could go ahead and fold it, but I think it's pretty close either way. I also haven't 3-bet on this table, and it was the first time in 54 hands, so I probably don't look like I'm completely out of line to the extent people are paying any attention to that sort of thing. People or their HUDs is probably a more accurate way to say it. Button raised first in with King Deuce suited on the upper left-hand table. Recreational player calls in the small blind. We get an 8-7 deuce two-tone flop. So we go ahead and range bet that one small. Lower right-hand table, we raise the 9s first in from middle position. We get called and then led into on a 6 flush closing turn on that King Deuce hand. So we're just going to go ahead and fold that without any kind of spade. Not going to try to make a move on a guy that short. Don't have a real great equity or very robust equity. Now the lower right hand table, we get raised in position 3.5x. I think it's actually okay to go ahead and fold this, as tight as it may seem, especially with the player pool not being all that aggressive. And for the sizing to be a little on the larger size. Lower left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the button. We're on the big blind. We can go ahead and 3-bet our king-queen offsuit in that situation. Upper left-hand table, that recreational player limps the cutoff. The small blind completes. We'll check in blind on blind with our pocket threes. So we get a 4-3 deuce two-tone flop. And we'll check our range out of the big blind, see if the recreational player has any desire to stab. He does not. Small blind checks again. I'll start betting at this pot using the small size because of the multi-way nature of it. Cutoff folds out, as does the small blind. Lower right-hand table, we'll raise first in, blind on blind with the ace-queen offsuit. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise the cutoff with pocket fives. In the ace-queen hand, we get a jack-8-3 rainbow flop, and we'll check range to the big blind. We get led into for, what is that, about 70% or so of pot from the big blind here. I think it's okay to go ahead and fold versus that, actually. Pretty close. I'm not really sure. It's weird against donks. I don't really know too much about that guy. Against this small bet over here, that 1.71 into 5.7. About a 30% bet. We'll go ahead and check call that. We turned a gut shot and we block the straight. I think it's okay to turn this into a bluff here because we actually have a hand like we could have a hand like Queen 10. And go ahead and check raise for pot. It's perhaps a little bit loose to do that there. It's better to do it with some kind of 10x hand as you've got more equity if I'm called. I just think that when he goes ahead and stabs small, then follows through in the turn blind on blind, he's going to have far too many hands in his range, and I can take advantage of that and get him to fold a lot of stuff. And it worked that time. It won't work all the time, but it worked that time. Upper left-hand table, everyone checks through on the Jack 10-3 rainbow. The turn is the Jack putting up a backdoor flush draw. We'll go ahead and jab at that pot small with our second pair, using the small size because of the multi-way nature of that pot. Well, this guy looks like he's a recreational player also playing on that short stack. Upper right-hand table, the under-the-gun player, recreational player, opens to 3x. He's been pretty tight and passive, or at least pretty passive so far. We're still going to go ahead and call with the ace-6 suited. It's kind of on the cusp. We're going to be cautious here with the one pair with the weak kicker, though. He bets a half pot. We'll go ahead and check call. Trip aces, we'll go ahead and check to him again on the turn. And now we have a double paired board, and we have effectively the nuts. We only lose to quad deuces or ace 10. We want to go ahead and get value on the double paired board. I'd like to use the full pot size bets. We'll do that. Hope we can get called by something weaker. Upper left-hand table, recreational player limps under the gun. We can go ahead and raise up out of the blinds with ace-10 offsuit. Lower right-hand table, we raise first in with the ace-queen offsuit on the button. We'll do the same thing with the same hand on the upper left-hand table. And that lower right-hand table is breaking. Lower right-hand table, raise first in with the queen-10 offsuit. In 2.5x open, blind on blind, we defend a ton of hands, but not a hand as weak as 10 deuce offsuit. 2.2x open from middle position. Start defending a bit wider against that slightly smaller raise first in size, that 2.2 as opposed to a standard 2.5. We don't need to start defending quite as wide as ace-7 offsuit. Probably any offsuit Broadway and maybe ace-9 and all kinds of suited connectors and 1 and 2 gappers. Upper left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the cutoff. Go ahead and defend our big blind with 7-6 suited. And we'll check range on the queen at 9-3 two-tone flop. He checks back. We get a king turn. We'll go ahead and start jabbing at that pot, especially with our flush draw to back us up. We river to 6. I don't really think we have enough showdown value here to try to show this down. I'm really trying to bluff him off a hand like 9-10 more than anything. So I'm going to go ahead and keep betting. I think it's a little more profitable than trying to show that down. Lower left-hand table, ace-king offsuit. We'll raise that from first position, under the gun position. The recreational player in the small blind comes along. We're going to go ahead and range bet on the queen 9-5 rainbow flop. And we're going to start shutting our tables down here after the next orbit. We get check raised, pretty small. I would continue with the back doors. Without them, I'm just going to go ahead and fold. Upper right-hand table, we're in the small blind. We get a 2.5x open from the button. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet pretty aggressively here, about a 15% range, including all of our suited aces. Upper right-hand table, we'll raise pocket sevens first in on the button. Upper left-hand table, we raise queen jack suited from the cutoff. We'll range bet the upper right-hand table on the ace jack 4 two-tone board. Our cutoff raise first in gets 3-bet by the big blind. He does that to a very small size, which is going to let us continue with a lot of our hands, especially our hands with lots of playability post-flop. The fact that he's short makes us want to continue a bit less. However, we haven't seen this guy very much at the table and know that he's not doing that with all sorts of random junk. This hand is just too good to do anything but continue against that bet. And then we flopped the flush draw. So it's a pretty good flop for our hand. He bets effectively all in. He mashes the pot button. Now we have, assuming that even all of our spade outs are live, we are, if our flush draw is good, then it's pretty much all we should be. We have about the right odds to call this down, even if no fold equity, which we shouldn't have any when he puts effectively all his chips in. If we end up where he ever folds or our pair outs are ever good, this becomes massively profitable. So we're going to go ahead and stick the money in. It's pretty neutral EV anyway, even with just the flush draw. And we end up against the dominating flush draw, which is the one hand I was saying we don't really want to be against. And that has us in pretty bad shape. But, that happens every so often, so be it. I wasn't expecting to see the ace-high flush draw there because it's such a small part of his range. But it's okay. It happens. Just a bad result for us on that particular hand, that's all. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise ace-queen from the cutoff. Get quickly called by the button. We get 3-bet. About a standard size for a squeeze. So we're going to want to go ahead and have some 4-bet bluffs in our range. I think I'm going to be stacking off here with at least queens plus ace-king, maybe even pocket jacks. And I can have ace-queen as my bluff. I'm folding if he jams over the top, but it, has great removal of the hands that will jam. Can do okay if I get called and have some flops where it works out pretty well. And I don't really want to call with it, so it's a good candidate for a 4-bet bluff. Fold the 10-9 offsuit under the gun. And the Jack-5 offsuit under the gun. So that's it. That's the last of our hands. This is Charlie Murphy signing off, and thank you for watching.